always have bell and falling contours, while afterthoughts have flat and low contours, but actually afterthoughts are rarely expressed in my data. I've only got 2 examples, so I don't know if this is an absolute rule, but it probably is, because cross-linguistically is what afterthoughts usually look like. For subject being in the post-verbal position, it occurs 32 times in my data, so 6% of all the subjects overtly expressed. They may occur in the same intonation unit as the preceding verb, 8 times out of 32, or more often in different intonation units. So the verb is separated by a prosodic break from the subject, and this is 24 times out of 32, and out of this 24, 19 have a pause between the verb and the subject. As for objects, proportionally they occur less than subjects in post-verbal position, 24 times, 33.5%. They often occur in the same intonation unit as the verb, 10 times out of 24. They can open half of the time in a different intonation unit, but not preceded by a pause, or only twice after a pause. So here is one example of a repair.
Madam thayen martaba.
So you see the bell contour with the falling end on martaba. And the first word, firash, is Arabic. Then madam is one of the words for mat in Beja. Then you have dayn, the people bring them, they said. So the sentence actually should end there, the paragraph should end there, because you have this say verb marking the end of a paragraph. And then without a pause, there is this bell contour, martaba, which is the proper word he was looking for. Here is an example where the anti-topic is just repeating a word that has already been said. So amul, the milk container, ifadi iwene bodor, when they bring him the container, asti ingiden, he throws it up, they said, o amul. And again you have this bell contour. And now an example of clarification. So, u'amul, the milk container, hogeti hetit, has come back down. Bhot hoidan I, it splits from it, and we don't know what splits from the milk container, and then the clarification is given, en girma. Literally the head, but it means the hedges. And another example of clarification by a female speaker. So he proves them for them. Ifif ihen, they said. Galekeka, to each of them. So now you can see the big difference with afterthoughts. You have a very flat contour here. It starts something like 125 hertz going up to 130. So something really very flat that you can hardly hear. So, Guaguadi hoy, I had hobbled it in it. He hakwarait after I had attached, or make the donkey. There is actually a prosodic break which I forgot to mark. So now we move to the category of focus. And in Beja you have a dedicated particle for focusing the predicate, I or ya. And this particle is only enclitic to predicates, be it a noun with a copula, which is enclitic to the noun in Beja, and a verb, and in my data I only have verbs in the perfective and the imperative conjugations. It doesn't mean that it cannot occur with other tenses, but I need to check that. So the two allomorphs are actually phonetically conditioned. Ya occurs after final a, and e occurs after other phonemes. Well, those permitted by the conjugation, of course. This is a rare particle in my data. I only have 11 examples of them. And semantically, it has an intensive value of veracity. You can translate it by either indeed, for good, truly, really, well, and whatever other translation you can think of. So first is an example with a nominal copulate, nominal predicate with a copula. So when she has finished cooking the gruel is just basic food in the Beja diet, she said, eat, Tami, dirarokui, this is indeed your dinner. Tid, she said, and they said. Oop, that's too quick. And a second example with a copula and a noun. Madam Toktui, this is indeed your mat. Tainaitid, sleep on it. And before she had just said she was spreading ashes for her. So sleeping on ashes is not common even among the Beja. Now is an example where e follows a perfective verb. Ya irani nanhitai. Gosh, what have you really seen? And an example after another perfective verb. Unu or, this boy. Tinate lakatiani I aunit. So I aunit, they help this boy by dint of picking up well his things, the things being the pairs in the pair story. And an example with ya after a perfective. So, and you told me you did me wrong, gosh. You made the man who is my friend live for good. And utak, starting here, utak arawi accueille gigistaya. You made the man who is my friend live for good, she told me. And another example after an imperative verb. Tara uhashi gigaya, tara aslima indihub. When he said, either leave the country for good or become a Muslim. So live for good is gigaya on the first line. Another focus particle now, it's the sentence focus particle, and we will see that it's not only a sentence focus particle, and I discovered it only in preparing this talk, actually. There are two allomorphs, and I'm not that sure anymore that they are really allomorphs. People, well, Beja speakers tell me that, yeah, it's just the same. But when you look into the details of the functioning, there may be a slight difference, and maybe they're not allomorphs. So anyway, na is independent, and ni is always enclitic. It works as a contrastive sentence focus, that is its main function. It can contrast an expected situation or with an expected situation, or contrast with the speaker's will. It can also mark a contrast between two clauses, and rarely it can mark a contrastive argument focus. I have only two examples of that I will show you. So the first example on the screen is the verb followed by the enclitic particle ni. And in this case, there is no overtly expressed contrast. It only belongs to shared knowledge. And this particular instance, the shared knowledge is that men usually don't have donkey legs. And the effect, the semantic effect is that the thing comes as a surprise. So, oniguinim ad guinib, tak meki ragadai, there is a man with donkey legs. Iragadai katini efi. He is even made of legs, understood donkey legs. You can also criticize the ni particle after a converb. And in this example, it contrasts two explicitly expressed states of affair. So, I arawak wanasenek, how come your friends are chatting? Literally, it is if your friends are chatting. Afirabni ikatinek, literally, if they are rejoicing, if they are happy, how come they are happy? And here you have the contrastive particle. And the other part of the contrast is Baruch, you, Gadab tikatiek, you are sad if you are sad. So how come that your friends are chatting, that they are happy while you are sad? And here is one of the two examples where actually the sentence focus particle is not attached to a verb or a converb, but to a demonstrative. And in this particular instance, it is very clear that it contrasts two arguments of a verb. So, hirere bara agare, while they walked back. Unni, on the demonstrative. Dife, while this one was leaving. So it's the pair story where the boy with the pears meets a group of other children, and after he has fallen down and they pick up the pears, they each one goes its own way. And the second case of a contrast between two arguments is actually not based on an explicit, linguistically expressed item, but on shared knowledge. The fact here that fishermen usually fish, but not pieces of jars or donkey corpses. So make it misusni and fariek. Since sometimes I fish out the corpse of a donkey, and this is unexpected. Diwani firkak and fariek, and sometimes I fish out a piece of jar. Now, na has a somewhat different behavior than ni. Na, which is prosodically independent, occurs quite often after a conditional clause. And in this first example, it contrasts with the will of the speaker. So, hagigiheb tindek na, if you want to take me away, and implying against my will, but this is not expressed linguistically, you just have the na particle. I arewa anebwa nitramhok niat, me and my children, we will accompany you. I ari I ishkadi, but I won't leave my children. And after a conditional clause, the contrast may be with an unreal state of affairs. With tifab katak da'iekla, if there was a written agreement, and there is none, if there were a police, hukumati tifiyek, tis ibik tindi, it would stop him. But nothing like that happened. Na also often occurs after a relative clause, and it, in my data, only occurs for a contrast with a shared knowledge. Ittifaq kitab iktinebna, an agreement that they would have written but have not. And here you can see that it is not positioned right after the ittifaq kitab, so the fact that it was well written, but after the relative clause itself. I have one example where na occurs after a discourse marker borrowed from Arabic, yani, and again it contrasts with an expected state of affairs. So Bariyo Dhayu Ayi Bilab Kiken, they didn't shake hands with him, make an agreement. Ya'ani, that is, na shagametit nat hoy imirnena, that they would get something from him, and they didn't, after having worked. So, just to make it clearer, they didn't shake hands with him, meaning that they would get something from him, and they didn't get it from him, the money actually that he owned them, after having worked. I have one example with na following a noun, but unlike ni, it does not express a contrastive focus on the argument. The contrast is with the shared knowledge, the fact that a man cannot drink a whole jerry can of water just in one go, which the man in the tale did. Are jerrycani yam I fit, then there was the jerry can of water. Jerrycani tahit it gadhi, he takes the jerry can and gets down. Ti jerrycanina ton faisetit, and he completely finishes the jerry can in one go. So now let's look what is, for me, and maybe for you also, the most intriguing particle of Beja, the phatic intensifier hawk. So hawk, as an independent pronoun, is the dative second person singular. In my data, it only occurs with the phatic intensifying function in reported discourse or dialogues. It can occur with any person, first, second, and third persons. It occurs syntactically mostly after the predicates, but sometimes also after an adverb. And its function is kind of twofold. You have the phatic functions, which seems to be an appeal to the interlocutor, but also it intensifies the whole utterance or just one constituent. And there is a variant of that which occurs only with the simulative particle, which is enclitic, and normally the enclitic pronoun out, not the independent one, is the object second person pronoun. So it occurs normally after the verb. And it occurs in discourse and dialogues, but also in narrative parts. And I really don't know if it's something that happened only that the hawk independent dative pronoun just became agglutinated with the simulative particle for some reason, or if it's an independent development, I don't know. So here is an example where you have four hawk following one another in equational utterances. Idaman daman kiki hawk. I'm not very well. Literally, it means the time is not the time to you. Ukwishin pasi ton tu hawk. The steering stick is our lunch, literally to you. Tu adiraronu hawk. The container is our dinner to you. Nhetash madam ton tu hawk. Ashes are our mats to you. So he's not really addressing someone, but it implies that there is something strange going on. Well, not strange, but he implies and intensifies the fact that he's not feeling well because everything is not in order. I mean, you cannot eat a steering stick normally, eat a container for your dinner without something in it, and sleep on ashes. The intensifier hawk can also intensify imperative verbs, so it's more a kind of intensifier of a predicate, imperatives and prohibitives alike. So the first example is an imperative. Iham ana hawk, iham hana hawk. Hey, come then, hey, come then. And the second example is with a prohibitive, but again you have a relative sentence. No, not a relative sentence. It is separated from the prohibitive by the caudative verb. So nat bahiuna yadnhib hoka. They tell me, don't give her anything. And you can see here that the hoka is followed by a suffix which mark the masculine addressee. You have the possibility in Beja to refer to the gender of the addressee by I in the masculine and I in the feminine after all personal pronouns. You can find also hawk after other verb forms, finite or non-finite, but this is rare for non-finite verb forms. Anitoi hefi hawk in the hob when he says I'm here. And after a manner converb, ya artik tenidab daba hok indi. Hey man, you know how to run, he says. And there are several occurrences where hok is used as an intensifier of an adverb, or very often winnet, actually, it means a lot, plenty. Hani bate, I see them. Winnet hok han ka abiklakin, although I don't remember them very much. And the last example is with a simulative marker. The first one is the singular simulative marker. The use of hok is optional, but actually it's the majority of the use with the simulative markers. So titakat tit hok quin hetit, after I have spoken like a woman. And an example in the plural where the simulative plural marker is et, not it. On sur net hok mayao it, after he has put the light on like before. Oh, so now we move to the second part, which will be much shorter than the first one. The discourse particles, ge or gen, this is just variance, and hilo. Ge is actually a connector with a very vague or polysemous meaning, if you wish, depending on the context. It can mark a temporal connection between two states of affairs. It can contrast reasons or situations that have already been mentioned, something like in spite of reasons or situation already mentioned. It can mark a consequence, a reason, or move to a new part of a story or to a new argument. And finally, it can limit a statement, whatever it is. So here is an example with a temporal connection between two states of affairs. Halat Sagit Betit, they go to a remote village, and you have here a sequential converb, which is normally used to link two temporally connected clauses. And then you have ge, then, ish aye eyaina kame eyaina, they buy their cows, they buy their camels. Here's an example with the expressing a contrast with the previous state of affairs. You can translate it by in spite of or anyway. Ya'ar arawe samihok kadi, man, I will not become your friend. Anihob, when I said, ge winnet hai etirheb, anyway, he insisted a lot. So even though I said, I won't become my friend, he wanted to become my friend. It often occurs after a conditional clause, and then it marks a consequence and can be translated by something like in that case or then. But we again, nishibibhuk. If you don't give it to him, then we'll call on you. And after a temporal clause, it also expresses a consequence. Ego yehobge, so yathoki ditit. When he cannot, then he says, I'll show you. After a reason clause, it's the same consequence. Temporal clauses can also express reason clause, reason meaning in Beja. So since it is you he's asking, barok tikati hob, ge u adil dor hitokaitindi, then this time I'll let you have the reconciliation. The next example moves to a new part of the story. Anda sur niheb indinheb hisan. I thought the men would overpass me. Anyhow, their camels were very athletic camels, and then it follows the development on their camels. And it can also express a reason, something like could be translated by because. You have to get up for me because daruri talagai hok abari idat. I have something to tell you, he said. And the because is only contextual meaning. In dialogues, ge is used as an adversative connector. Here you have two speakers. So the first one says, Ya irana yonaneb gidirim atam hinheb anihob. When I said, gosh, give me something to put in the pot. And the other speakers answer, Ge hininnat ganbari enheb, they told me, but we have nothing. And ge can also be used as an adversative connector in a monologue, udor ge ish-i. So previously, before this sentence, there was another sentence meaning I paid 10 or 15 pounds, but it was long ago and I don't remember. Literally, it means udor, the time, ge, then, ish-i was old. And the last example is an example of the limit of a statement. It's after an imperative here. Gada ge, just wait, umha han habui, until you are indeed in the morning. Hilo is supposedly a very frequent discourse particle in Beja when you ask speakers, but I have very few examples of these in my data, only 2. And they always make the narrative move to a new part of the story. So, Hilo hagabi arashashid, anyway, without taking care of this, I breeded it. And before concluding, just a few words about tail-head linkage in Beja. So it's a very, very frequent type of close chaining, which repeats parts or the whole preceding clause. It connects episodes of narratives, and it marks a thematic continuity. And it can be expressed by 2 devices, syntactic devices, either by a temporal clause or by simple juxtaposition, the repetition of the previous clause. So here is an example of tail-head linkage expressed by a temporal clause. My har hatnia, you'll see a light. My har itil, when you'll see a light, go and spend the night with these people who know us. And an example with juxtaposition. In Gadien, he stops, they said. In Gadiat, he stops and something else happened. So, just a few words of conclusion, rather summing up. What I wanted to show you in a topic which is still underdeveloped, Lamine mentioned reconstruction in Afroasiatic, but information structuring still need to be further studied in many Afroasiatic languages. So the importance of studying not only particles or syntactic constructions, but also prosody in order to identify clear cues that distinguish pure syntax from information structuring. So prosodic contours are very important for the identification of topics and the difference between anti-topics and afterthoughts. Also, that predicate and sentence focusing are marked by different particles, not the same one, as it often occurs cross-linguistically. One of these particles may rarely be used as an argument focusing device, not only as a predicate focusing, sentence focusing device. What is striking is you have no dedicating focusing particle for argument focusing in Beja, and I still need to investigate the role of prosody here. Another important feature is no clef constructions whatsoever for argument focusing, and actually clef constructions can be used with an explicative meaning, which is related to focusing, but not argument. So it's the whole relative clause that is in focus. And here is an example. Unutak, this man, ottebida tibarine nati, with the things that he has. And you have the copula here, which gives you a signal that it is indeed a clef construction. Takato wet be direk. So literally it means he could easily marry a second time. This man with the thing he has, he could easily marry a second time. It's a bit complicated in Beja because the last part of the sentence literally means if he does not marry another woman. And in this language, you often use negative constructions to express a positive statement. I would be very happy to know if in other Afroasiatic languages you can use personal pronoun in the same way as Beja uses it for fatigue and intensification. And I'm wondering, and still don't know, if the discourse particle again is not undergoing a grammaticalization process towards a simple connector and a marker of adverbial clauses. Thank you, some Beja.
Thank you very much, Martine, for this wonderful paper and this rich data, which, yeah, it's so abundant. And I couldn't agree more with the importance of prosody, study of prosody and information structure in Afroasiatics. Indeed, there's much to do. We have plenty of time for questions, because Martine was perfect, 45 minutes. So this leaves us so much time for questions and comments. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Could it be by any means useful to associate this particle, or rather this second person, marker hoc, with the ethical dative, the dativus ethicus? Would that make sense at all? Sometimes even in, I think, colloquial Arabic, you get this as a, well, not necessarily intensifying device, but it kind of rings a bell. Would that make any sense to you?
Yeah, I don't know enough about this use of the second person in Arabics to answer you properly, but it could be the case. I have the feeling that there is something like, calling your interlocutor attention to what you're saying, which by extension can intensify your statement or what you say. But it's difficult for me to compare between this use in Arabic and its use in Beja. But if you feel there is some kind of connection, then I would be happy to dig a bit further into the matter.
So, and yes, please. I mean, yeah, there's a mic if you wish to speak in the mic.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martine. Fascinating talk. Well, I'd just like to ask about some of the functions of particularly the focus type of constructions, and a lot of this brings to mind a very important article by Zassa on the distinctions between the use sometimes of clefts or focus constructions not to actually express what he calls a thetic type of presenting a thetic situation, whereby you can often get constructions which have two functions. One can be a focus construction on the specific constituent, and another thetically presenting their entire situation using the same syntax but distinguished in prosody. Mm-hmm. So, well, first of all, I mean, I think that at the very end, that cleft construction you presented struck me as being possibly you could have a thetic interpretation that this is the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not dealing with sort of contrast there. You're just presenting this is the situation, the grounds for what follows.
Yeah, there is no contrast at all here.
Right. And I was wondering if you go back at some of the other types of focus, particularly the sentence focus, perhaps. I mean, you weren't. You didn't actually show us the prosody, I think, for a lot of these, did you? It's really just the topics. I was wondering whether looking at prosody might possibly, or may not, I mean, but it may distinguish different sorts of usage of these particles, whether it's actually some kind of narrow focus on I mean, you said some of these were sort of contrastive topics, contrastive arguments, for example. I mean, I think prosody there would be important to actually see what the prosodic contour is. I mean, what would be the prosodic contour of a contrastive argument, for example? I mean, because you see, many languages can use the same structure, but with a different prosodic contour would be more like a thetic type construction. You know, like in French, you know, you say this famous sentence, c'est maman qui me bat, but c'est maman qui me bat. Say that the two different one is the former is thetic, the second is contrastive. So. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm almost sure that prosody plays a role here. I didn't have time to investigate all the prosody I focused on topics because there is no other cues, so you have to find out where the cue is, and it is clearly in prosody. As far as the focus particles are concerned, I had enough evidence that there was semantically and pragmatically some differences, and this is what I tried to show you by explaining the various shades of meanings that were brought by these particles. But I do believe that there is prosody playing a role there, but I really don't know yet. I really need to investigate this. Yeah.
Yes, over there.
For a broader range of languages in the area. We're thankful that you've done this for one variety of Beja. I was wondering your informal impression, if you hear your narrators speak Arabic, does their discourse structure, their intonation contours, is it markedly different from the way they do it in Beja?
Well, their Arabic is heavily influenced by Beja at all levels. At the level of word order, at the level of intonation, but it's also the other way around. You see a few boring particles like yani, and there are a few others, lakin. So there is heavy contact between Arabic and Beja, mostly among male speakers, less so among female speakers, but in a big city like Port Sudan, I mean, most females also speak Arabic. This is not the case in the village where I worked. And I would say that the Arabic they speak is heavily influenced by Beja intonation and Beja word order. That's what's really striking when you hear them speaking Arabic, which was actually my working language with them.
And do you have any impression about monolingual Arabic speakers, or that speakers who don't speak Beja? Are there intonation contours markedly different? I mean, just sort of hearing in the distance, can you say, well, that's not the Beja contour?
Well, I've only worked with Beja speakers who are not monolingual in Arabic, so I don't know. I can't answer you. But there are some studies about Arabic varieties, and there is Stefano Manfredi somewhere who worked extensively on Baghari Arabic, so maybe he could answer better than I. But it's not the Beja area where it is spoken, so yeah.
He nods his head. Do you want to comment on that, Stefano? No. No? Okay. Do you? Okay. Other questions? Sorry, Martine. It's not me.
So I was wondering whether you have any ideas about the etymology of Frog, because in Coptic we also have this particle Ho, and then the K is evidently the pronoun suffix, right?
Yeah, I have no idea, except that the K is all around in Afroasiatic for second persons. But we know for other personal pronouns, for instance, those starting with bar or bat, that it comes from a verbonominal form of the verb to have, which is biri. But for the other pronouns, I don't know, maybe someone has an idea in the audience? Maybe it's related to Egyptian, but they are genetically linked. So
yeah. So for the hawk in Coptic, it would be body or limbs.
yeah,
So-
well, it has no relationship with body in Beja.
Yes, some other yes. As a
Yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering if, for example, definites, if you have noticed correlations, more definite forms being more topical or something, could you remark on that?
Yes, definitely. Definite nouns are more topical than indefinite ones. Yes.
And the converb, because it's not indexing subject, and I was wondering how it functions in close linkage. Do you have a kind of identifying topics or subjects in long sentences? What is the means used for that?
Subjects are very rarely expressed in converbial clauses.
Yeah.
I gave one example, I forgot which one,
Yeah.
but it's quite rare.
Yeah.
You may have same subject clauses with the main clause and the converbial clause may have the same subject, but it's not always the case. And it depends on the converb. There are 4 converbs in Beja. The sequential one, and the sequential one is always same subject. You have a manner converb, you have a causal converb, and you have a general converb. And they behave a bit differently as far as same subject and different subject are concerned, but this is not marked on the converb.
So, okay, thank you.
If I may say something. So as for the sequence marker at the end of the paragraph, so in my presentation afterwards I will present some things in Tuareg Berber, which has the same, and I saw in other Cushitic languages, as Sheko, for instance, they have it too. So I have the enclitic markers, which end the end of the discourse, the end of the paragraph, or the end of the sequence, which usually also corresponds to the an intonation unit, the end of an intonation unit. Anyway, it was very interesting to see it because Tuareg Berber, anyway, has that too. And I think it's, in my case, it's an aerial phenomenon, but I show that Cushitic has it too, so I'm very...
But in the case of Berber, is it with the verb say?
No, it isn't with the verb say. We don't, for the time being, I don't know yet where it comes from, but it's an aerial thing. It's the same de or da at the end, which marks the end of a sequence. Anyway, I was just very happy to see that Beja has it because, yeah.
It's often, and it's not necessarily at the end of an intonation unit.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. So I think we're perfectly in time. It's 11 o'clock, ready for some more coffee before kicking off the parallel sessions. And so the first parallel session will be here on diachrony, contact, and documentation. The other one will be in 505 on the 5th floor on phonology to start with. So thank you very much for your attention, and let's thank Martine Vanhove again for her wonderful presentation.